We've got great guest in studio now, Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
We've talked often on the air about the opioid epidemic, and there are a bunch of forums upcoming. I've got Chief Bo Bakken coming on the air in the next couple of weeks here before your conversation on the 15th of November.
Yes.
It is a big issue, still impacting and still at some high levels in rural communities like ours, opioid addiction and opioid abuse.
Yes, and my concern is that right now it's kind of made the national news in the last few months, actually. But this has actually been an issue that goes back a few years, and law enforcement has been saying, and emergency service people, this is coming and this is going to be an issue, and not much has been said, and then all of a sudden it becomes an issue and everybody says, where are you? And we've been talking about this for quite some time now and training up on it. But I think we're only at the beginning stages when you look at other places in the country.
What have you seen in kind of the historical data, arrest numbers and things like that, that would lend a community like ours to potentially be more susceptible to opioid abuse? Are there any certain significant demographic factors or financial numbers?
It's kind of tough, because as soon as you say one thing, there's a reason you can say something against that.
Sure.
But I think it's not much different in other areas of the country. I think sometimes we get wrapped up into something that this is just happening here. A number of years ago, the meth issue.
Yeah.
Well, one of the reasons that Mason County was involved in that back then is you simply didn't have the number of law enforcement officers out there you had in other counties.
Sure.
But you also have to look at the rural factor, where you've got a lot more space where there's nobody, and it's a lot easier to hide yourself out. I think this is just such an epidemic going on that when you compare it to anywhere else, we're not that much different than any place else. You look at, I think it's in Ohio is where they have the highest areas right now of usage and things. It does have a lot to do with with what's going on in your community. I mean, we're going to have a guy come out Friday and talk to us about some of these issues, and every time the socioeconomic things are going to come up, and the guy that talked to me last week about it says, listen, if you have a low level of law enforcement in your community, you're going to have a higher level of crime.
Yeah.
You go to places that have very high socioeconomic areas, I mean really high socioeconomic areas, you have less crime. But there's so many factors involved in that. Because you have more money, you're going to have more law enforcement, those kind of things, and it keeps some of that out of the areas. But it's a national problem right now, and you can see it. You turn on any news station, and you're going to see people talking about this issue.
Are there some things that the sheriff's office or Shelton Police or the tribal police as well in the county that they're doing that you think could have good gains or grounds on a national level? Are there certain things? I know the deployment of the Narcan seems to really be helping at least save lives. It may not be doing a lot to stem the opioid epidemic, but at least in saving lives, the fact that the officers have these units on them.
Yeah, I have the ability to do that, and actually we carry them though as well as for the individuals on the street as for ourselves. Because there's been a lot of officers, they get involved in a search or something, and you get involved with that stuff, it gets blown through the air or something. All of a sudden, they become a victim of that same circumstance.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so, and I think the guests that we're going to have today actually end up getting a chance to go to a training on carfentanil and fentanyl and some of these synthetic opioids that are out there that are really creating hazardous situations for the firefighters and emergency staff showing up to any of these kind of calls with these individuals that are already in trouble. And it has been helping. I know that Shelton's got a number of saves. I think a couple of weeks ago we had one. It gets you the save, but if you're getting the services to somebody to assist them in getting off this stuff is the big part of it.
Had a lot of rain over the weekend, 3.5 inches at my place on Saturday or something like that, and dark during the mornings, dark during the nights. These stretches of roads here in the county can be a little rough.
And the slides as well. We
Yeah.
had a number of slides, and I watched the post coming up on the slides, and the power's out, and the lines are down and things like that. It's just, I think when the ground reaches that saturation point, a few years ago, I think one of my first years here in 2000. 7 or 8 when we had the big floods right in there. I know Chief Bakken was north and I was south, and we were trying to coordinate these things, and there were slides everywhere. So yeah, that's an issue. The darkness, I notice you get up in the morning, it's dark, you go home at night, it's dark. So, and we've talked a lot about traffic coming up. We've got, I think, I'll probably see next Monday. I think Tuesday is Halloween next Tuesday. Is that correct? Again, even leading up to that, for that particular night, it's a weeknight, but the darkness and the weather, and there's going to be little ghosts and goblins walking around neighborhoods and things. It's especially a time to really, really slow down. And those people that are out walking, hopefully with their parents on those things, are carrying some kind of a flashlight or some kind of a device that you can see them.
Okay. Encouraging, again, the kids to have highly reflective costumes. I know it's cool to look like ghosts and goblins, but if no one can see you, that's no good.
Yeah, and it's really good to have an adult with them out there rather than groups of people just running out in the street and things like that. It helps having adult guidance there.
Okay. Very good. Well, Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury in on a Monday morning. We'll check back in with him and representatives from the office next week here on the Daybreak Show. So have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Good to see you.